1983 and into maybe early 2001. And then we had 9/11 hit, and it's been one terrorist attack, one civil war after the next. And this is just another thing. Russia broke up when we started winning the Cold War, and they kind of had to surrender into the last cycle being positive. And that was a big relief for the world when that Cold War threat wore off. Well, we're back in it. And now it's the Middle East, and it's Boko Haram, and it's ISIS. But, Russia broke up, and it's in Putin's interest to kind of put it back together. I mean, their demographics are poor, especially as you go forward. Oil prices are dropping. The ruble has collapsed. They're in big trouble. Anything he can do to expand. This is exactly what Hitler did in the Great Depression. When everything was down and Germany had gone through a hyperinflation crisis, he decided the best way to grow was to beggar thy neighbor, take over your neighbors. What do they call it?
Lebensraum.
Yeah, a hostile acquisition, And so, that's what he wants to do. And what he does, like any other guy like him, when he sees an opening, goes for it, then he kind of backs off for a while, So he's just looking for openings. I mean, he's got every reason to go into Ukraine. And the question is, should Europe and the U.S. fight him? Because we keep trying to get out of wars, but there's more civil wars in the Middle East and other places. And here we got this. These stuff do threaten trade. They do threaten a lot of things for Europe and us. So it's kind of this other thing. Do we go in there or not? But it's hard to win these wars. And we're kind of like running out of the ability to do this sort of thing. But if I tell you, this geopolitical cycle does not turn up until around early 2020. So we keep telling people, whether it's more civil wars, where it's the rise in terrorist activity now in Europe, which we're not surprised at, ISIS getting more and more defiant and just brutal. This is likely to continue for the next...
Yeah, what does the demographic bloom in Muslims in the Middle East mean? That population explosion, I mean, that's just a natural thing then to invade other countries.
Yeah, I mean, they are one of the highest demographic, for births, their whole population. The poorer populations in general have higher birth rates. What I noticed the other day, I was just doing an analysis for one of our articles in our newsletters, and I was just saying, look at this rising terror thing in Europe, and where does it come from, and is it all Muslims and not? And it's not. Number one, the countries, the Middle East and North Africa, are the only region that have an absolute, 90% plus Muslim. So that's number one flag. The second thing, which is more important to me, it's in the Middle East with the sudden rise in wealth of oil that these countries didn't just gradually move into the modern era like Indonesia or Bangladesh or other countries or Malaysia that have high Muslim population. They were suddenly taught, this wealth in the West versus the kind of backwardness and poverty of their nations. And then you go and turn around and look at countries like Indonesia that's almost all Muslim, and I've been in Indonesia twice extensively. These people don't have any civil wars to speak about. They don't have insurgencies and all this discontent. So it's where you get this concentration, where you get this clash of West versus older cultures, that you get this. And I tell you, this is bad. These people are fighting for their life. They think they're right. That's what we don't get. They think they are right, and they have to do this, and they'll go to any extreme. And that's what makes it so dangerous. The same thing. Putin's backed in a corner. He's got to do something, or Russia just died.
And the West is trying to basically cut off their oil sales. I mean, the West is trying to kill Russia. And what do you expect a bear to do when it's down in a corner on its knees, being attacked by 10 wolves? It's going to come out swinging. And the elite are very reckless to be pushing this. I mean, and that's why experts are really freaked out right now. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with your phone calls and our guest, Mr. Dent.
We're on the march.
Questions of Harry Dent, harrydentresearch.com. You can find his books there on the site, and, of course, all the graphs as well. I'm going to give him a chance to hit any other big issues that he wants to recap or cover before we go any further. But briefly here, please don't forget that it's only $5.95 a month to become an InfoWars Nightly News member. You go to InfoWarsNews.com or PrisonPlanet.tv. It's been around now for 14 years. I've been on air 20, but we've had the site for 14. It's got all my films, a ton of archival footage, the nightly news, special live events, rants, videos exclusive to the site, and your purchase, $5.95 a month. It's less than that if you sign up for a year. 20 people can use each username. So get your friends and family watching. That's 20 people at one time. So it's 20 memberships for $5.95 a month. And it is your purchase of the memberships that funds this operation. And again, if you vote with your dollars and promote liberty-based, hardcore, reality-based media, it will expand, it will take over. And we've been doing that. I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, we were reaching maybe 1.5 million people a day with all the different platforms, you know, maybe 6, 7, 8 million people a week. Now it's well over 3 million a day, just the radio show. You add it all together, we conservatively reach 20 million people. But here's what's different. Less than half of that's in the U.S., and we are popular in the U.S., but most talk shows and things, quote, target a demographic. We don't target a demographic. We target humanity. So we have listeners in Japan and in South Africa and in Russia and in Mexico and in Brazil. And InfoWars stickers and signs get put up all over the world. But that's 20 million people worldwide, from YouTube to all the different platforms that see our videos or listen to the radio show. We can't measure all the Facebook and Twitter and the rest of it. Conservatively, 20 million. Imagine if a fraction of the 20 million went and bought Survival Shield X2, True Dancing Iodine. That's the good halogen that so many people are deficient in. They would really, you know, get a good response and would come back and be repeat buyers. And then we would be massively funded to just do incredible things, dwarfing what we've done so far. We have a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the people that tune into this radio show or watch this television simulcast that purchase the products. Look, we have our own problems. We can't keep in supply Made in America T-shirts or the Molon Labe. In fact, I'm about to have to pull the trigger on Central American or something shirts and say we don't have American in stock. We just can't get it in the numbers we want of, say, the camouflage. And I haven't done it yet. The point is that a lot of it's just the market scale. We've got to gear up to a level to where we can even reach our listeners. So it's a symbiotic situation. We don't get funded like NPR with 400+ million of taxpayer money every year. And they have pledge drives to push all their anti-human socialist garbage. We don't get billions in stimulus money like the parent company of MSNBC, who then they gave over $100 million of stimulus money directly to that outfit, and people like Rachel Maddow got raises off your tax money. They have no viewers. Of course they've got to be state-sponsored. They're really state-run media. We are funded by viewers and listeners like you. So spread the word. It's having a huge effect. Keep it up. Redouble your efforts. We're having a big effect. Really creating talking points throughout the political spectrum that get us back to Americana basic ideas, not all the fake talking points to confuse the public that establishment media puts out. We're having a huge effect. And if you'll just buy the high-quality nutraceuticals, if you'll buy the Survival Shield X2 and get a free bottle of Ancient Defense when you do that, when you go and you get for Valentine's Day the Super Mellow Super Female Vitality, you've heard the rave reviews. We haven't really gotten any negative reviews. It's going to blow you away. You're going to keep buying it. We're going to be able to self-fund and really make history together. So it's a win-win-win, win-win-win. But you got to vote with your dollars. InfoWarsLife.com, PrisonPlanet.tv, or call toll-free 888-253-3139. And I want to thank all of you that do purchase from us and do support us and our sponsors as well. Like Mr. Dent, he's not on because he became a sponsor. He spent a little bit of money with us, did some advertising for his book. I mean, that's what it's all about. We're all symbiotically, who are promoting liberty and free market, working together. But we're at war because they've attacked us with the collectivists that are seeking to shut that down. And that's my next question for Mr. Dent. Then I want him to finish up any other points and go to calls. He just talks about, and you just talk about, sir, hard demographics, historical cycles. But you've got all the new fraudulent flash trading computers. You've got all the new gaming systems that you've talked about. How does that fit in? And how does the Cloward and Piven socialist crony capitalist model fit in, where they don't care if they're in more people? They don't care if things start imploding because they've decided to go into a system of artificial scarcity where people are poor as a social management system. I'm sure you're familiar with the UN models and Cloward and Piven and that whole school of thought. That's why they rationalize creating such economic chaos, is because the establishment, to a great extent, is exempt. Now they're lobbying for $100 trillion in every decade in new taxes at Davos as a wealth transfer for the middle class to pacify the poor masses. But as we know, a lot of the Davos crowd ends up getting some of that stimulus money for themselves. So how do the crony capitalists feed into all this?
Well, it happens even in more capitalistic countries like the U.S., especially in this part of the cycle. Economists talk about money supply. We look at money velocity, the rate at which money is turning over of its own volition, not just the Fed creating more of it magically. When money supply is going up and above average, it means we're investing in the future. We're making investments that pay off with higher wages and profits and growth. But when it starts to go down, it means, businesses and people are getting in a speculative mode. People are flipping condos, they're flipping tech stocks. Businesses are borrowing money cheap, courtesy of the government, buying back their own stocks to exaggerate their earnings per share when they're not really growing that much. So you get into this speculation. When you start doing that, bubbles build. You're not really making progress. It's artificial. And then these bubbles will burst. So we're already crossed that line by our analysis, where we're going into a deflationary mode. And you can keep creating more money, but it gets spent and lent and leveraged less and less and less. And all it does is create bubbles that burst. So this is a very, very dangerous point we're at in the economy.
Well, I understand the lay of the land, and you broke it down very accurately, unlike any other I know. But what I'm getting at here is you've got this other school of thought in the ruling establishment, and it's not unified, but it's a dominant group, who openly push collectivism, socialism, and artificial scarcity, and how it's good to be poor for the general public, and how we shouldn't want better lives. They're really setting up this austerity is sexy idea as a way of re-engineering the economy scientifically to basically make people poor. I mean, I see that happening.
Well, the reason they're not getting any of the benefits. When you get in a speculative economy, the people with the money and, like you say, the special interests and corporations, these oligarchs, they're the ones that have the money and the leverage. So the everyday person's real wages have been going down since 2000, but the profits and the incomes and wealth going to the top 0.1%, 1%, and 10% have skyrocketed as strongly as in the Roaring '20s. So these speculative economies, which are, a lot of it is when governments push interest rates and make money free, and when they give out money in all types of ways or print money, it causes money to be abused. There is no free lunch in life, because there shouldn't be. A free lunch gets abused, and we're getting this all around the world. It can be fake programs to say they're helping the poor. Most of the foreign aid overseas in the places like Africa has just gone to the warlords and the tribal leaders. The money there always ends up there because they've got corruption. So what I'm seeing is all of the gains in the economy, especially since 2008 and 9, when we had all this QE, has gone to the very top echelons. It is definitely not going to the average person.
And I totally agree with you. That's an absolute fact. And so I think you just boiled it down. We're moving towards the warlord economy, the conquest economy, away from the free market economy. It's always a mix historically. Nobody's perfect. But we're moving away from the Swiss model into the Congo model, undoubtedly. And I even see elites saying they're going to have armored redoubt cities in sectors. We're all going to be in poor grids. They're moving towards a Hunger Games model consciously, almost like they've decided it can't be fixed anyways. So why not just embrace the warlord model? Where do you see that going?
Well, it starts because the rich get richer. In any time of innovation, and I call it the fall season, like the Roaring '20s or in the last decade or two, when there's innovations like information technologies moving mainstream, there's certain people that will move faster, will innovate more, will be more entrepreneurial. But once that starts happening, you get this elite special interest group, and all they really do is keep saying, we want more of the same. This is working for us. And so that's what's happening. It's got motion behind it, and the government is responding to special interests and not the people. I mean, it's not just free market capitalism's failing. It does get too greedy at times, but democracy is failing here because people are not objecting to it and are letting it happen. People have got to say, no, we can't let the economy be rigged. And it is rigged. It's rigged in investments. It's rigged in by the Fed pushing up stock markets, but not wages. Of course, the average person isn't going to benefit, and the very rich are going to do better than ever. And you can only go so far until you get a revolution. People start chopping off heads.
That's it. And then Soros and others are openly saying they want to take